So there's a lot of Star Wars, and I'm gonna review every Star Wars movie. Now, the right way to do this is kind of hard because as you can see, there's a lot of eras of Star Wars. You know, there's the prequel era, there's the uh, original trilogy, and there is the new trilogy. Now, I decided the best way to do this is to start with the prequel trilogy. So here we go. Let's start with Phantom Menace. Before I get into my review of Phantom Menace, I'm going to say there are positives and negatives to each Star Wars movie. That's the only way you can do this. So let's get into it. Phantom Menace. Alright, what did I think about it? It's bad. Pretty bad. I mean, the general idea of the movie, like how it takes about the descent into darkness, how democracy turns into a dictatorship, is really smart. But the writing is just really bad, and it kind of just derails the whole movie. Um, I mean, there's still some cool stuff in it. I mean, Qui-Gon's pretty cool. Liam Neeson does well in his role as a Qui-Gon.
This film isn't all bad.
As there's some cool general ideas about how like a democracy, in this case Naboo, Naboo and I guess the Senate in this case goes and turns into or it doesn't turn into a fascism in this movie, but by the third movie, which is kind of the point of the prequels, it's like how the empire became what it was. It's kind of cool, and it's cool, and it's very like realistic, and it mirrors history in a way, which is kind of when Star Wars it's at its best, is when it takes mythology and real life history to make like a Star Wars movie with lightsabers, which is kind of why I love Star Wars, because it's history, and it's also like it's lightsabers, and it's like space battles, and yeah. All right, back to this movie. But as I said before, the writing in it isn't really bad. It's really bad, and it kind of makes this movie somewhat unwatchable. I wouldn't say it's like unwatchable. You should definitely like see it if you want to get the full Star Wars experience. But like, yeah, it's really bad. One thing that was cool at the end was this is like the creation of Darth Maul. And I'll get that more into the Clone Wars. Darth Maul is like how good he is as a villain. In this one, he's really different in Clone Wars than he's in Phantom Menace. In this one, he's more of a less explained character. I mean, he only says 37 lines in the whole movie. 37 lines in the whole movie. I mean, for like your villain in the movie, him saying only 31 lines isn't really good. But look, Clone Wars kind of saves his character. As I said, he's completely different in Clone Wars, and I'll get to that in the Clone Wars part of this video. But yeah, Phantom Menace, the final battle was cool. But yeah, this movie kind of doesn't escape the bad writing, and some of the CGI is kind of bad in this movie too. On to Attack of the Clones. Attack of the Clones is kind of like Phantom Menace, but it's a little bit better. The writing's a little bit better. The CGI is a little less frequent in this one, but it still kind of faces the same problems. The writing's kind of bad, and the CGI is kind of a lot, and there's a lot there of CGI. But look, there's some things that are kind of cool about this movie, and I'll get into it. One of the cool things is created the Clone Wars, which I mean, Clone War TV shows, as I said before. I'm really excited to talk about that, but it's really good. This created the Clone Wars. Next thing I want to talk about is Jango Fett. I don't understand why he has to be in this movie. I think it's because Boba Fett sold a lot of action figures in the 90s, so that's why Jango Fett is in this movie, so they can have, oh, this is how Boba Fett became a bounty hunter. This doesn't really, I don't think Boba Fett really connects to the general Star Wars timeline. Like, he's a bounty hunter, so it doesn't really make sense for him to have all these connections with all these, like, other Jedis. Like, I kind of liked how he's kind of mysterious. So, it's kind of, I didn't really like how they handled Boba Fett in Attack of the Clones by making him basically a clone of Jango Fett. So yeah, that's kind of my take on that. And I'm going to go into another thing that I don't particularly like about this film. Anakin's second act is kind of like decisive for me, because like I don't like the first part, the love scenes are kind of stupid between Anakin and Padme. I mean, the dialogue's kind of bad, but I kind of like the second part of his Act 2 arc, which is like his descent into darkness in a sense. I like how it's kind of in the room where Luke Skywalker like resides at the beginning of New Hope, and it's kind of like one thing that's good, which kind of brings me to my next point of like the one thing that's good about this movie in particular is how it connects to the original trilogy. Like, I'll get into another point about how it connects to the original trilogy, but this movie really reflects and it kind of adds new layers, because I think this scene adds new layers to the original trilogy, and then a couple other scenes in this movie adds more context and more, like, I guess, like more emotion on the original trilogy. Okay, another thing that I like about this movie, the fight between Count Dooku, Anakin, and Obi-Wan. I think it's really good, and I kind of like how Anakin has a green lightsaber in this fight, and his arm gets chopped off. Spoilers, I know, but this movie's been out for like 20 years or something, like, they're 10 years or something like that, so I mean, you get a chance to see this movie before I spoil it. I really think it's cool that he kind of loses his arm this way, and I think it's cool how he loses the green lightsaber after his arm gets chopped off, and it's kind of like the green lightsaber was what Luke Skywalker had at the end of Return of the Jedi, but this kind of happens where it's like a reflection, where it's like, oh, he had his chance to be on the light side and he's turned to the dark side. To finish, I'm gonna finish on the thing that I don't like in Attack of the Clones. I don't like the Yoda fight. I don't like it. I don't like the choreography. I think they do it a little bit better in Revenge of the Sith. It isn't perfect in Revenge of the Sith, but it isn't like this where he's doing like weird flips all the time. I don't know. I just think I don't really like this fighting in this movie. All right, now we're on to the Clone Wars movie. Now this movie does get some things right, and it did create Ahsoka Tano into the canon, but there are a lot of things wrong. The plot is weird. I mean, it's like they're hunting for like Jabba's baby or whatever. It's a weird plot. But it does get some things right, and you can definitely see how they were able to get the Clone Wars TV show right from the adjustments they made in this movie. What's also weird about this movie, it's not really even a movie. It's kind of like an 3-episode arc. I mean, there are some good things in it. There's a couple memes, I guess, really. If you pick apart the lines. But, I mean, yeah, you kind of get a sense of, like, how they're going to able to do the Anakin's character during the Clone Wars. And Obi-Wan's character during the Clone Wars. And, like, Captain Rex, or Commander Rex, and, or Clone Trooper Cody, I guess. But, I mean, I would say the reason why this movie is boring is just the plot is horrible. It's definitely one of the things they improved on was the plot was a lot better in the Clone Wars TV show. Now, a lot of these movies have bad parts in them, but I would say you just skip this one. I mean, this one's not really necessary for the Star Wars story, but if you're here to see the origin of Ahsoka, then maybe you should watch this one. But besides that, you should just skip the Clone Wars TV show. Alright, we talk about the bad Clone Wars movie, but let's talk about the great show. Now, I love this show. I think it adds a lot of context about war and politics during this time. I think it's very cool because this show is basically set during the Galactic Civil War, or the first Galactic Civil War. I think it's really cool, and it kind of reflects to our times in the world, and it connects to our world while still being Star Wars, which is kind of really cool, and kind of what makes Star Wars Star Wars. One of the other things I have that's awesome about this, they have like these arcs, and it's not always about Anakin or Obi-Wan or Ahsoka. It's about the clones sometimes. Like there's one where they're on Kamino. There's another one where they're on, I forget what planet it's called, but they're one where basically the whole arc is where they overthrow a fake general who turns out to be a Sith. I thought was really cool. My favorite arc personally I'm not gonna count season 7 because I feel like that's in its own category. Um, I think my favorite one is the Citadel. I mean that's just my personal favorite. But I like a lot of these arcs. And what's yeah, I mean that's all I kind of have to say about these. It's really good. You gotta watch it, even if you're not into Star Wars. It's like if you're just into like war and politics, like this is like right up your alley. Now I'm gonna talk about season 7 before I get to the Ahsoka part of it. What they do with Darth Maul in this Clone Wars series is awesome. They add so much context to his character, and it's amazing. And they bring like where he's from and like all these other things, and like it's also cool because he's basically like this rejected son of the Emperor or the Senate or Emperor Palpatine, whatever you want to call him, Chancellor Palpatine, whatever, I guess. But I mean, it's really cool because I mean, when their fight during Mandalore at the end of season 5 is really cool. It's just really interesting to see because they kind of play it off in all these movies that Palpatine's plan is just like working, and this is the one part where his plan doesn't work, and I think it's really cool. Now I'm gonna get to talking about the Ahsoka part of Clone Wars season 7. I thought it was really good, and it added a lot more context to Revenge of the Sith, and it's basically I consider that 3 4 episode arc as part of Revenge of the Sith because it takes place during Order 66, and it takes place like in Revenge of the Sith and like all that other stuff. And that's why Revenge of the Sith is my favorite movie. It leapfrogged. I'm not gonna tell you the rest of the order because that'd be spoiling the last video in this. But yeah, I mean, that's why that's why Revenge of the Sith is my favorite movie. Kind of cheating because Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith are two different things, but I consider that to be like one cohesive, like just film or arc, or whatever you want to call it. I just consider that to be that. So I mean, yeah, that's my opinion of that. On to Revenge of the Sith. You couldn't tell right before when I mentioned Revenge of the Sith in the Clone Wars part. I really love Revenge of the Sith. Now, the beginning is so awesome. The opening battle scene is really cool, and I think it like kind of is refreshing because I would say the prequels are kind of slow, even though like some parts of it are good, but they're still slow. And the opening scene is really cool because it shows that this movie is going to be fast paced and it's going to be really cool and it's got a lot of action. Now, the one problem that I do have with this movie is that it's a little too bit fast paced. This movie is still really, really good, and it's my favorite Star Wars movie, but I think the only problem this movie faces is that it's fast-paced, really. Now, we're going to get into the fight between Count Dooku and Obi-Wan and Anakin. Now, I think this is really cool because this is like the end for Anakin. I'm going to spoil it because it's been out for a while. If like you haven't seen it by now, I mean, too late. I mean, you can click off the video, but yeah, I really think it's really cool because, I mean, this is like kind of the end for Anakin in my opinion because, I mean, after he kills Count Dooku, he starts to turn like really, really bad on the dark side, and yeah, I think it's really cool. Now I'm gonna get to another part of this movie that I really, really like. I love the fight between Obi-Wan and General Grievous. Yes, the CGI is a little bit too much at times, but I really like it and it's really fun. And I also think this part of it is really cool because it's kind of reflective of the what incoming happens when Anakin betrays Obi-Wan and the rest of the Jedi Order.
Army or not, you must realize you are doomed.
Also, before I get on to the Yoda Palpatine stuff, I also want to add that the way Grievous's eyes are like yellow and Anakin's eyes are yellow at the end or Anakin's eyes are yellow at the end of Revenge of the Sith is kind of really reflective, and I think it's really cool. Also, okay, now here we go on to Palpatine versus Yoda. Now this one is a little better than Attack of the Clones Yoda fighting, and it's a little less flipping, and I mean, it's not bad. It could have been better, but like, I still think it's really good, and it's still like it's really cool, and the fight's really cool because Yoda kind of accepts that. I mean, Darth Vader is just too powerful. I mean, he could still fight Palpatine, but Vader is more powerful than either of them, so that's why Yoda goes into hiding. Now, let's talk about my favorite part of the movie. Obi-Wan and Anakin's fight on Mustafar. Now, first, before I get into this fight, I just want to say, Mustafar is my favorite Star Wars planet. No, it's not Hoth. No, it's not Endor. No, it's not Tatooine. It's this planet because it's a volcano planet, and this planet is really, really cool. I just think it looks cool. And I mean, it's really reflective with Anakin. I mean, he's like really Sithy now, or he's a real Sith now, you know. And I really think now onto the fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan. This fight's really cool because you could see Obi-Wan really doesn't want to fight Anakin, but he has to. And he wins the fight at the end by tricking Anakin, because by tricking Anakin into jumping over him, and when Obi-Wan hits him with a lightsaber and he cripples him and basically kind of destroys his whole body, I guess his all limbs are gone. I really think that's really cool, because Anakin's character is this really foolish character at the end of the day. That's how he gets fooled into... I mean, it's not really a foolish character, but it's kind of this character who has a big ego, and it's this character where he gets tricked into basically kind of becoming Vader because he has this big ego and he's afraid that Padme is gonna die. And it's really, really cool, and it makes this whole movie makes Anakin into this tragic hero, which is kind of the goal of the whole prequel series, and that's why I really like Revenge of the Sith. Anyways, that's the end of this video. Next time we'll be talking about the Battle of Yavin, or stuff that happened in the battle, or stuff that happened around the Battle of Yavin. That means it's time for the original trilogy plus Solo and Rebels.